who walk along the ocean floor carrying 20-kilo rocks to build the strongest muscles on Earth. People who live underwater as if they were fish, places where nature shrinks bodies to survive, and peoples who have survived for tens of thousands of years in lands where you or I would die in a matter of hours. This is Uncensored World, and today we're going to learn about the tribes that defy the laws of science. Number 13. The Sherpas and Tibetans. They survive without oxygen where everyone else would suffocate. You might think that climbing Everest, the world's highest mountain at 8,849 meters, is just a matter of buying a plane ticket, training a little, and starting to walk. But that's not the case. Not by a long shot. Climbing Everest often costs well over 100,000 euros per person. And there's one thing that's required by law. No one can climb without being accompanied by a Sherpa. Why? Because without them, almost no one would make it to the top alive. For over a century, every time a Western mountaineer managed to reach the summit of Everest or any other mountain in the Himalayas, the whole world celebrated his name. Newspapers wrote about him. History books recorded his feat. But there's something almost no one knows, and it completely changes that version of history. Alongside each of those famous climbers, there were always one or more Sherpas, and those Sherpas didn't just tag along. They carried on their backs tens, even hundreds of kilos, spread out over several trips. Oxygen tanks, tents, food, ropes, all the equipment necessary for the rest of the team to move forward. And they did so more nimbly and quickly than expert Western climbers who ascended carrying nothing themselves. Often, they didn't even need to use the bottled oxygen that the Sherpas carried for others. They weren't the assistants to the world's best climbers. They were the world's best climbers. It's just that almost no one ever bothered to tell the story that way. And this isn't ancient history. It continues to happen exactly the same way today. In Nepal, many Sherpa children train for this from a young age. They grow up playing and working on the highest slopes of their villages, helping explorers and adventurers from all over the world from a very early age. For anyone else, climbing those mountains would be an extreme life-or-death challenge. For a Sherpa child, it's just another day of childhood. It is quite simply their way of life, and the reason they can do it isn't just habit. It's written in their bodies, in their genes. To put it simply, on the roof of the world where the Sherpas live, the air contains almost half the oxygen you're breathing right now. If you were to suddenly arrive up there, your body could shut down within hours. Unbearable headaches, vomiting, and in the worst cases, death. The Sherpas don't just survive that. They live there normally, every day of their lives. For decades, scientists thought it was simply a matter of being born and raised in the mountains, much like how anyone improves their endurance by training at high altitudes. But when they studied it in depth, they discovered something far more extraordinary. Imagine wearing an invisible oxygen tank, without feeling the weight, without seeing it, but working constantly inside your body. That's basically what Sherpas have. Most humans, when climbing a very high mountain, react by producing more red blood cells to compensate for the lack of oxygen. It sounds logical, but there's a problem. Over time, that blood becomes thicker, blood pressure rises, and it ends up damaging the heart. But the Sherpas' bodies don't do that. A gene called EPAS1 widens their blood vessels so that the little oxygen available circulates faster and reaches farther. They don't have a bigger tank of oxygen than you do. They simply make much better use of it. And the origin of that gene is even more surprising than the gene itself. Researchers traced EPAS1 back to the Denisovans, a human species that went extinct tens of thousands of years ago and was related to Neanderthals. Today's Sherpas carry in their blood a fragment of DNA inherited from another human species that no longer exists anywhere else on the planet. To verify that this was genetic, and not just a matter of living there, scientists studied Han Chinese who had been living in Tibet for generations. The result was clear. Even after generations spent at the same altitude, They did not develop the oxygen efficiency that Sherpas possess naturally. The gene is inherited, or you simply don't have it. And there's more. In 2017, researchers at the University of Cambridge discovered that, at high altitudes, a Sherpa's muscles burn fat as their primary fuel instead of glycogen, a much more efficient process when oxygen is scarce. That is the real reason why, for over a century, every Western expedition to the world's highest peaks has needed a Sherpa by their side, not just to carry weight. Because their bodies do, with apparent ease, what the body of any other human cannot do, even with years of training. As you've seen, for a century, the world cheered for the wrong climbers. Do you think they should be the most famous climbers? Tell us what you think in the comments. Later on this journey, you'll meet another people in the Andes who faced the exact same oxygen problem and solved it in a completely opposite way. But before we get there, let's meet a society capable of running for hundreds, even thousands of kilometers without stopping, barefoot. Number 12. The Tarahumara. They run for entire days barefoot, where you wouldn't last an hour. In the mountains of the Sierra Tarahumara in northern Mexico, lives a people who call themselves the Rarámuri. The word literally means the light-footed ones. And it's not just a poetic name, it's an accurate description of who they are. To put it simply, while you or I would consider running a 42-kilometer marathon, just over 26 miles, a feat, the Rarámuri have a ritual race, the Rarajipari, that can last more than 24 hours straight, covering over 200 kilometers, about 125 miles, without any real rest. And they run it by kicking a small wooden ball ahead of them as they go, climbing up and down mountains, often wearing nothing but handmade sandals made of leather and recycled tires. Other times they run barefoot, and what's the longest distance you've ever run in one go? It'll be fun to read your comments. Their other secret is even more extreme. For centuries, the Rarámuri have hunted without bows, spears, or traps. They simply run after the deer, and they keep running, for hours, sometimes for more than a full day, without stopping, until the animal, which is much faster in a short sprint, finally collapses from sheer exhaustion. Humans don't win because of speed. They win because their bodies can endure what no other animal in the mountains can endure. Scientists who have studied their physiology have discovered something that defies what was previously believed about the limits of the human body. Joints and tendons adapted to absorb the impact of running with virtually no cushioning, a metabolism capable of burning fat as its primary fuel during extremely long periods of exertion, and a tolerance for pain and muscle fatigue far above the global average. But there is one curious fact that surprises even the most experienced sports scientists. The Rarámuri do not train the way a Western athlete would. They don't do interval training, they don't count repetitions, and they don't wear heart rate monitors. They run because it's their daily way of life, from childhood onward, to travel from one village to another, to hunt, and to communicate between communities separated by tens of kilometers of mountains. Their bodies develop on their own, without a gym or a training plan, simply by living this way generation after generation. In 1993, the Western world finally took notice of them, and something happened that no one expected. A group of Rarámuri runners was invited to compete in an ultramarathon of more than 240 kilometers, almost 150 miles, in Colorado, United States, against the country's best ultra runners, equipped with the most advanced running shoes of the time. The Rarámuri ran in their usual sandals, and they finished among the top finishers, leaving behind professional runners with years of scientific training behind them. Decades later, that feat continues to be repeated, and now it has a name of its own: Lorena Ramirez. She runs ultramarathons of more than 100 kilometers, 62 miles, wearing her traditional skirt and her usual sandals, and has even won races in Europe against professional athletes equipped with the most advanced sports technology on the planet. From Colorado to the Alps, the Rarámuri have spent 3 decades proving the same thing. that the human body can do things no state-of-the-art running shoe can replicate. And later on this same journey, you'll meet another people, the Kalenjin, from a small valley in Kenya, comprising just over 0.06% of the world's population, who have turned running into something even more incredible, a tiny ethnic group that, on its own, has won more than 40% of the world's major marathons. But before we get there, let's meet the smallest humans on Earth, and the many reasons why evolution decided to halt their growth in adolescence, so they could survive in one of the most dangerous environments on the planet. Number 11. The Pygmies, the people. Nature won't let grow. In the tropical rainforests of Central Africa, where trees reach 30 meters in height, and the vegetation is so dense that the sun barely touches the ground, lives a group of peoples who, for thousands of years, have defied one of the most basic rules of human biology. The Pygmies, which include groups such as the Baka, the Aka, and the Mbuti, are the shortest humans on the planet. An adult pygmy measures on average between 150 and 155 centimeters, nearly 30 centimeters shorter than the global average. But what is truly extraordinary is not their height. It is the reason why they are that way. For a long time, scientists believed that their small stature was simply the result of malnutrition or isolation. Then, a more intriguing theory emerged, that they were small, so they could move more easily through the dense jungle, climb trees with greater agility, and survive on fewer calories in an environment where food is not always abundant. And there's a lot of truth to that. Pygmies are extraordinary climbers. Their feet possess a flexibility and grip that no other human population has, allowing them to scale vertical trees in an almost supernatural way to gather honey, fruit, or eggs. But science went further, and what it found was even more fascinating. Genetic studies revealed that pygmies aren't born small. At birth, they are of completely normal size compared to any other human baby. The extraordinary thing happens during adolescence. While other children around the world experience the growth spurt that takes them to their adult height, the pygmy body simply slows down. It stops growing, as if the jungle had programmed a signal into their genetic code that says, "This is as far as you go, you don't need any more." Researchers identified that this halt is related to very low levels of a growth factor called IGF-1 during puberty. It is neither a deficiency nor a disease. It is a deliberate adaptation that evolution has embedded in their genome after thousands of years of natural selection in the jungle. And what's most impressive is that they aren't the only ones. The jungle does the same thing to the animals that live there. In the very same regions where pygmies live, there are pygmy elephants, pygmy buffalo, and pygmy hippos, all significantly smaller than their relatives in other ecosystems. The dense jungle, with its limited resources and closed vegetation, favors small bodies. And over thousands of years, both the animals and the humans living there gradually grew smaller, generation after generation, until they reached the perfect size for survival. This is no coincidence. It is evolution at work in real time. The pygmies also have one of the deepest relationships with the jungle ever documented among any people on Earth. They do not view it as a resource. They view it as a living being with which they coexist and to which they owe respect. They have specific rituals to ask permission before hunting, to give thanks after finding honey, and to communicate with what they call the spirit of the jungle. Some groups, such as the Mbuti, hold a ceremony called molimo, when something serious threatens the group, playing music for days to awaken the jungle and ask it to restore balance. Their knowledge of the environment is so precise that researchers who have lived among them describe the experience as navigating a city you know by heart, but where you cannot read any signs. Do you think being small can be an advantage or quite the opposite? Leave your answer in the comments. But while the jungle chose to shrink the human body to survive the heat and lack of food on the other side of the planet, nature made the exact opposite decision. In Siberia, there is a people whose bodies had to transform from the inside out to avoid freezing to death at temperatures of 60 degrees below 0 Celsius. 176 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. Number 10. The Yakuts, the people who live where the air freezes when you breathe it in. In the heart of Siberia lies a region called Oymyakon, known as the coldest inhabited place on Earth. There, winter temperatures drop to 60 degrees below 0, 176 degrees Fahrenheit below 0. To put it simply, at that temperature, if you step outside and take a deep breath, the vapor from your own breath freezes audibly in the air, a phenomenon the locals literally call the whisper of the stars. Metal shatters upon contact, cell phones shut themselves off, and a glass of boiling water thrown into the air turns to snow before it hits the ground. There, in that frozen hell, a people known as the Yakuts, or Sajas, have lived for over 1,000 years. And they don't just survive, they raise livestock, hunt, build their homes, and raise their children as a matter of course, in a place where anyone without the proper clothing could die of hypothermia in less than 20 minutes. For decades, scientists assumed their secret was simply their clothing and customs. But when they studied their bodies from the inside, they found something far more extraordinary. The Yakuts have one of the highest levels of brown fat ever measured in a human population. Brown fat doesn't store energy like normal fat. It burns it directly to generate heat, as if the body itself had a small internal heater running all the time. Most adult humans have almost no active brown fat. The Yakuts do, and in enormous quantities. Furthermore, their basal metabolic rate, that is, the energy their bodies burn simply by being at rest without moving or doing anything, is up to 30% higher than that of a person from a temperate climate. Literally, their bodies generate more background heat all the time, 24 hours a day, just to stay alive. And there's something even more striking. The blood vessels in their hands and feet have the ability to constrict and dilate in rapid cycles, a mechanism called the hunting response, which allows blood to continue flowing to their fingers and toes so they don't freeze completely, preventing tissue freezing that would cause necrosis in minutes in anyone else. Their diet, moreover, is one of the most extreme on the planet. They eat raw or barely cured meat and animal fat in quantities that would be considered dangerous for the heart in any Western country. But their bodies need that fat as pure fuel to generate heat, just as an engine needs gasoline to keep running. Without it, they simply wouldn't survive the winter. Yakut children go to school as usual, even when it's 52 degrees below 0 Celsius, 62 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. They only stay home if the temperature drops even lower than that. As you've seen at one end of the planet, nature shrank a body to survive the jungle. At the other end, it turned an entire people into a human boiler to survive the ice. If this fact has left you speechless, give us a like right now and subscribe to Uncensored World, because this isn't even half of what you have yet to discover. Later on in this same journey, you'll meet another Arctic people whose very bodies function as a real heating system, always on, to survive where almost nothing else can live. But for now, let's meet a people who solved a completely different problem: how to literally live on the sea with no solid ground beneath their feet for generations on end. Number 9, the Bajau, the people who live underwater. In Southeast Asia, among the islands of the Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia, there is a people who for over 1,000 years have literally lived on the sea. Their homes are stilt houses driven directly into the ocean, several meters deep. They have no land. They have no fields. They have no livestock. Everything they eat, everything they are, and everything they know comes from the water. And over time, the ocean has changed them from within. An adult Bajau fisherman can dive as deep as 60 meters, almost 200 feet, on a single breath. No tank, no wetsuit, no equipment, just his body, a handmade spear, and a pair of hand-carved goggles. They can stay underwater for between 8 and 13 minutes at a time. To understand what that means, a professional freediver, someone who has spent years training specifically for this, can last between 2 and 4 minutes. The Bajau do it every day to get their breakfast, and it's not training, it's not technique, it's pure biology. In 2015, researchers from the University of Copenhagen traveled to Indonesia to study them and discovered something that forever changed what we believed was possible for the human body. The Bajau have the largest spleens ever recorded in any human population on the planet. To put it simply, the spleen acts as an extra blood reserve. When the body submerges, it contracts and releases additional red blood cells into the bloodstream. And more red blood cells mean more oxygen available for the muscles and brain. It's exactly the same mechanism that seals and dolphins use to prolong their dives. Among the Bajau, the spleen was, on average, 59% larger than that of neighboring tribes living on land, almost twice the size. And most striking of all, this was also true for Bajau people who hardly ever dived. This means it is not an adaptation that each individual develops through practice. It is a genetic adaptation. The Bajau body comes factory-ready for the ocean. Researchers even identified the specific gene responsible for this, PDE10A, a variant found in the Bajau, but not in any neighboring population, and which is directly linked to spleen size. Natural selection, over centuries of underwater life, had literally rewritten part of their genetic code. But it's not just the spleen that's different. Their eyes have also undergone a transformation. A study showed that Bajau children constrict their pupils when submerged in a way that no other human population studied is able to replicate, allowing them to see clearly underwater where any other human would only see a blur. Scientists believe this adaptation developed because entire generations of Bajau children learned to see underwater, even before they learned to walk on dry land. Furthermore, their tolerance for carbon dioxide is significantly higher than the human average. The urge to breathe does not stem from running out of oxygen, but from the buildup of CO2 in the blood, which triggers an alarm in the brain. In the Bajau, that alarm sounds later. Their heart rate also slows when submerged to levels that would be considered medically dangerous in anyone else. For them, it's simply the normal rhythm underwater. Bajau children learn to swim before they learn to walk. By age 8, they're already diving on their own. By age 10, many reach depths of over 20 meters, about 65 feet, without assistance. There are records of Bajau fishermen winning local freediving competitions against divers trained specifically for competition, not as an exception, as something completely normal. Some elders, after decades of daily dives, deliberately pierce their eardrums to relieve the pressure that builds up at depth. The pain lasts a few days. The benefit lasts the rest of their lives. Today, however, something troubling is happening. The governments of the Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia have been pressuring the Bajau for decades to abandon their houseboats and settle on dry land. Many have already done so, and scientists are observing something they didn't expect. In Bajau families that have been living on land for generations, the spleens are shrinking. Underwater vision is deteriorating. The diving reflex is weakening. What took 1,000 years to develop is disappearing in 2 generations, because evolution, when it is no longer necessary, reverses course, and with it, one of the most extraordinary experiments nature has ever conducted on the human body. Do you think the Bajau are proof that humans could have evolved toward the sea instead of toward the land? Leave your answer in the comments. And in this very video, you'll meet other people who, without sharing the same genetic background, are trying to adapt their bodies in a similar way, walking underwater for minutes at a time, carrying stones weighing tens of kilos to train for exactly what nature gave the Bajau for free. Thousands of kilometers away, there's a society on a small Pacific island with a completely different superpower: the ability to see at night where any other human would see only absolute darkness. Number 8. The Pingelapese, humans who see in total darkness. In the middle of the Pacific Ocean, more than 1,000 kilometers, about 620 miles, from any city, there is a tiny atoll called Pingelapese, barely 3 square kilometers, just over 1 square mile of land, surrounded by reef and turquoise water on all sides. And on that tiny patch of land lives one of the most extraordinary genetic phenomena ever documented in a human being. Between 5 and 10% of Pingelap's population cannot see any colors. No red, no green, no blue. Their entire world is a scale of grays, whites, and blacks. To understand just how rare this is, on the rest of the planet, this condition, called complete congenital achromatopsia, occurs in about 1 person in every 30,000. On Pingelap, it occurs in 1 out of every 10. It is the highest concentration of this condition ever recorded in the entire history of medicine. And the origin of all this is no mystery. It is clearly documented in the island's history. In 1775, a devastating typhoon swept through Pingelap. The waves and wind killed more than 90% of the population. Of all the island's inhabitants, fewer than 30 people survived. Among those survivors was the island's chief, the Nanwarki. And that man carried a recessive gene for achromatopsia. No one knew it then. No one could have known. As the island had to be rebuilt from a population of barely 30 people, each new generation inevitably intermarried with descendants of that same small group of survivors. And the gene that the chief carried within him, dormant for generations, began to appear again and again in his descendants. This is what geneticists call the founder effect. When a population descends from a group so small that a single gene, present in just one person, can end up defining an entire community generations later. 250 years after that typhoon, Chief Nanwarki's gene lives on in hundreds of his descendants. But what makes Pingelap truly unique isn't just what its inhabitants have lost, it's what they've gained in return. People with achromatopsia lack functional cones, the eye cells responsible for processing color and functioning in bright light. To put it simply, it's as if their internal camera lacked a daylight filter. This means that during the day, under the tropical Pacific sun, their vision is practically useless. Total glare, pain, near-functional blindness. That's why Pingelap residents with this condition wear extremely dark sunglasses even indoors, and avoid going out during the brightest hours of the day. But when night falls, something happens that no normal human eye can replicate. Without cones to interfere, their rods, the cells responsible for night vision, function with a purity and sensitivity that no other human on the planet possesses. They see in near total darkness with a level of detail that anyone with normal color vision would describe as impossible. The fishermen of Pingelap with this condition are, according to the islanders themselves, the best night fishermen in the entire community. They see fish in the black water where any other human eye would see only absolute darkness. They have lost the color of the entire world, and in exchange, they have gained a world that the rest of us don't even know exists. The case of Pingelap was studied in depth by neurologist Oliver Sacks, one of the most respected scientists in the study of the human brain, who traveled to the island himself and wrote an entire book about what he found there, The Island of the Colorblind. Sacks described Pingelap not as a genetic tragedy, but as a window into a completely different way of experiencing the visual world. Would you like to be able to see everything in the dark? We'd love to read your response. But if you think losing color in exchange for seeing in the dark is extraordinary, wait until you meet the next group of people. Because not far from there, in another corner of the Pacific, there are women nearly 100 years old who continue to dive to the ocean floor, without tanks, without oxygen, exactly as they did when they were 20. Number 7. The Haenyeo, women who dive in the ocean until they're nearly 100 years old. On Jeju Island, off the southern coast of South Korea, there is a community of women who for centuries have supported their families financially by going out to sea every day. They are known as the Haenyeo, the women of the sea, and they do something that completely shatters science's understanding of the human body's limits in cold water. They free dive, without tanks or modern wetsuits, for several hours a day, practically every day of the year, even in the dead of winter, when water temperatures hover around 10 degrees Celsius or 50 degrees Fahrenheit. And they continue to do so well into ages that, anywhere else in the world, would be considered impossible for this kind of extreme physical exertion. There are documented cases of Haenyeo over 90 years old who continue to go down into the sea every week, diving to depths of up to 10 meters, about 33 feet, on a single breath. The average age of those still active is around 60 to 70 years old. In 2018, a team from the University of Utah studied their genetics and found something they didn't expect. The Haenyeo exhibit specific genetic mutations related to improved cold tolerance and more efficient blood pressure control during diving. To put it simply, their bodies react to the cold of the sea by automatically lowering blood pressure, something that in anyone else would drastically increase the risk of fainting or a heart problem. And most surprisingly, these mutations were also found in women from Jeju who had never dived in their lives, simply because they were descended from generations of Haenyeo. This adaptation doesn't depend solely on practice. It's written into their genetics, inherited as a silent biological legacy, just as with the EPAS1 gene found in Sherpas and Tibetans. Their hearts and circulatory systems respond to cold water immersion in a way that no other human group studied worldwide has been able to match without years of extreme training. But what makes this community even more unique lies not only in their bodies, it lies in how their society is organized. For generations on Jeju, it has been the women who have provided for their families by diving every day, while many men stayed behind to care for the children and handle household chores. A social structure inverted compared to most traditional societies around the world, born out of sheer economic necessity on an island where the sea provided more than the land. In 2016, UNESCO declared Haenyeo culture an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. It was not merely a recognition of their history, it was a wake-up call. Every year there are fewer of them. The daughters and granddaughters of today's Haenyeo, who have more educational and career opportunities than their grandmothers, no longer choose to continue this way of life. Experts estimate that within a few decades this tradition could disappear entirely, taking with it one of the most extraordinary human adaptations ever documented by science. Women over 80 years old diving into the sea every week. Could you endure even a single day doing the same thing? But if you think that supporting an entire family by diving in the cold sea is extraordinary, there is a people in the Andes who solved the same problem as the Sherpas, that of breathing where there is almost no oxygen, in a completely opposite way. Number 6, the Quechua and Aymara, a giant thorax and a heart made for air that barely exists. In the Andes of Peru and Bolivia, at an altitude of more than 3,800 meters, 12,500 feet above sea level, millions of people live for whom breathing is not a problem. And yet, up there, the air contains 30 to 40% less oxygen than at sea level. Any tourist who ascends suddenly experiences dizziness, headaches, and shortness of breath within minutes. The Quechua and Aymara have been living right there for thousands of years, and they solved the oxygen problem in a completely different way than the Sherpas and Tibetans you already met in this video. While the Sherpa body learned to make better use of the little oxygen available without producing more blood, the Quechua and Aymara bodies did just the opposite. They produced a great deal more blood. To put it simply, if the Sherpa body is like an engine that uses less gas, the Quechua and Aymara body is like an engine with a much larger gas tank. They're born with a rib cage that's significantly wider than the global average, giving them more space in their lungs from the very first day of life. And their heart develops with the right side, the side that pumps blood to the lungs, considerably larger than normal, capable of moving a volume of oxygen-rich blood far greater than that of any other person on the planet. This adaptation begins even before birth. Quechua and Aymara babies already show lung development in the womb that differs from that of babies anywhere else in the world. And at birth, their blood oxygen levels are higher than those of a Western baby born on that same mountain. It's not something that's trained over the years. It comes pre-programmed. Researchers have also found that their ability to perform intense physical exertion at these altitudes, carrying heavy loads, working in the fields, and walking long distances uphill, is significantly greater than that of any acclimated person from elsewhere in the world, even after months of adaptation. The Andean body does not need to adapt. It is already adapted at birth. But this adaptation comes at a cost that the Tibetan adaptation does not. Over the years, producing so much extra blood can cause it to thicken excessively, leading to what doctors call chronic mountain sickness, or Monge's disease. Headaches, extreme fatigue, and in the most severe cases, heart failure. It's a condition that, curiously, is almost non-existent among Sherpas and Tibetans, despite living in similar conditions. Two peoples, the same mountain that should kill them both, and two completely different genetic pathways to staying alive. One is more efficient in the long term. The other is more powerful, but comes at a cost. Which of these two powers would you choose if you could be born with one? Tell us in the comments. Thousands of kilometers away, in the Arctic, there is a people whose entire body functions like a real heater, running all the time so they don't freeze to death. Number 5, the Inuit. Their bodies are heaters that never turn off. In the Arctic, spanning Greenland, Canada, and Alaska, lives a people whose diet should, according to all modern medical logic, kill them from a heart attack long before they turn 50. The Inuit eat almost exclusively animal fat, seal, whale, and fatty fish, very few vegetables, almost no fiber, and a daily intake of fat that in any Western country, a doctor would classify as a real danger to the heart. And yet, they do not suffer from the heart attacks or high cholesterol that such a diet would cause in you or me. A mutation in their DNA, in the CPT1A and TBX15 genes, causes their cells to burn fat directly to generate body heat, rather than storing it in their arteries. To put it simply, it's as if their own bodies were equipped with an internal heating system that never turns off, fueled by the one thing the Arctic provides in abundance: fat. The same diet that would give you a heart attack is, for them, simply the fuel that keeps them alive and warm in temperatures that can drop below 40 degrees below zero, 40 degrees Fahrenheit below zero. This mechanism also activates what's known as brown fat, a type of fat that barely exists in most adult humans, and which, instead of accumulating, is burned instantly to generate pure heat. The Inuit have levels of brown fat far above the global average, functioning as a second source of permanent internal heating. Scientists who studied this mutation in 2015 were particularly surprised to find that this genetic variant is practically exclusive to the Inuit and is almost non-existent in any other human population studied on the planet, not even among other neighboring Arctic peoples. It is a unique genetic solution, forged over thousands of years of living exclusively on what the ice and the sea provided. And this adaptation isn't limited to fat. Their circulatory system also behaves differently from that of anyone else. Blood flows more easily to their hands and feet, even in extreme cold, delaying the onset of frostbite that would appear much sooner in other people. Their entire body on the inside is designed to fight the cold on several fronts at once. Their bodies do not store the cold as a threat to be endured. They convert it into energy, literally. But on the other side of the planet, in the world's coldest desert, another people solved the problem of extreme cold without needing a single drop of animal fat. Number 4. Australian Aboriginals. They sleep without coverings in sub-zero temperatures without shivering even once. In Australia's central desert, nighttime temperatures can drop below 0 degrees, while during the day the thermometer easily exceeds 95-95 degrees Fahrenheit. A brutal temperature swing every day, all year round. For decades, scientists studying the Aboriginal peoples of the desert were at a loss to explain something they saw time and time again. They slept with very little warm clothing, out in the open, in sub-zero temperatures, and did not shiver. Not even once. For anyone without that adaptation, shivering is the body's first automatic response to the cold. Muscles contract and relax rapidly to generate heat. But shivering has a problem. It depletes energy very quickly and prevents proper rest. The Australian Aborigines developed something different, called shiverless thermogenesis. Their bodies deliberately lower the temperature of their hands, feet, and skin by reducing blood flow to the extremities while keeping the body's core, the heart, lungs, and brain at a stable and safe temperature. This is exactly the opposite of what your body would do. In the same situation, yours would go into severe hypothermia within a matter of hours. The first studies documenting this phenomenon date back to the mid-20th century, when Western physiologists traveled to the Australian outback, expecting to see the local population suffer from the same nighttime cold that they themselves endured while wrapped in blankets and warm clothing. What they found left them perplexed. While the researchers shivered inside their sleeping bags, the Aboriginal people slept peacefully, with very little protection, next to a small campfire that gave off barely any heat. This ability does not depend on body fat or a special diet, as is the case with the Inuit. It is a purely internal adjustment of the nervous and circulatory systems, which activates automatically during sleep, without the person having to do anything consciously. They sleep normally. They truly rest. Meanwhile, deep inside, their bodies are making automatic decisions that no Western cold resistance training has ever managed to replicate. A few minutes ago, you met the smallest humans on Earth, just a few hundred kilometers from here, in that same continent of Africa. The jungle made the exact opposite decision and created those known as the African giants. Now you're going to meet them. Number 3, the Dinka and the Nuer. Nature made them giants to survive the heat. In southern Sudan, in one of the hottest and most humid regions on the entire African continent, live two peoples who are among the tallest humans ever measured in the history of science: the Dinka and the Nuer. Men who frequently exceed 1.90 meters, 6 feet 2 inches in height, with limbs so long and slender that they seem sculpted for a very specific purpose. Some historical records document Dinka men exceeding 2 meters, 6 feet 7 inches in height, placing them among the tallest populations ever measured anywhere on the planet, even surpassing the average height of countries like the Netherlands, which holds the world record for average national height. For years, Western scientists who first documented their height assumed it must be a matter of diet, a particularly nutrient-rich diet that promoted growth. The reality turned out to be exactly the opposite. Subsequent anthropometric studies found something that didn't fit that theory. The Dinka and the Nuer reached these extraordinary heights even during periods of very low caloric intake, in communities where food is scarce for much of the year. If height were the result of eating well, it should disappear during years of famine. It doesn't disappear, it's present in the body even before birth. The real explanation has a name in biology: Bergmann's and Allen's rule. It's a principle that holds true throughout the animal kingdom, not just in humans. In warm climates, long, slender bodies, with more skin surface area relative to their total volume, dissipate heat much more efficiently than compact bodies. It's the same reason why an African savanna elephant has enormous ears that act as natural radiators, or why giraffes, which share the same type of habitat as the Dinka and the Nuer, develop those endless necks and legs. Nature, on the hot plains of Africa, has been favoring exactly the same solution for millions of years, whether in a human, an elephant, or a giraffe. Generation after generation, for centuries, the bodies that best dissipated heat survived more easily in the extreme heat and against the diseases associated with overheating. And it was those bodies that reproduced and passed on their height to their descendants. It's not a choice, it's not a coincidence. It's evolution working exactly the same way in a human as in an animal, within the same extreme ecosystem. But not far from there, in Kenya, there is a tiny people who turned those same long, slender legs into the most dominant running machine the world of sports has ever seen. Number 2. The Kalenjin, the tribe of marathon kings. In the Rift Valley in western Kenya lives a people of just 6,006% of the world's population. And yet, over the past few decades, they have won more than 40% of the world's most important marathons. This is not an exaggerated figure. It is a statistic that is almost impossible to explain without a real biological reason behind it. In April 2026, a Kalenjin runner named Sebastian Sawi did something no human had ever achieved in the history of track and field. He ran an official marathon in under 2 hours. His time was 1 hour, 59 minutes and 30 seconds. He beat the previous world record, which had been held since 2023 by another Kenyan runner, Kelvin Kiptum, by just 35 seconds. 2 men, 2 consecutive world records, the same region, the same ethnic group. And this dominance isn't limited to just a couple of specific names. Of the top 100 marathon times ever recorded in the history of world track and field, the vast majority belong to runners born within a radius of just a few kilometers in this very valley. No other place on the planet concentrates so much endurance talent in such a small area. Scientists who have studied the Kalenjin for years have identified several biological factors that work together. The first lies in their legs. They have extremely long and slender lower limbs with very little muscle mass below the knee. Each leg functions like a pendulum, and the less weight there is at the end of that pendulum, the less energy it takes to move it thousands of times in a row over more than 40 kilometers, 26 miles. The second factor is altitude. The Kalenjin naturally live and train between 2,000 and 2,500 meters, between 6,500 and 8,200 feet above sea level. At that altitude, the body produces more red blood cells to compensate for the lack of oxygen, exactly the same mechanism that enables the endurance of the Sherpas and Tibetans in the Himalayas, but applied here to running rather than climbing. But science also points to something that has nothing to do with genetics: lifestyle. Throughout much of this region, for generations, children have traveled long distances on foot or by running every day, simply because there was no other way to get around. No cars, no school transportation. Many Kalenjin children ran several kilometers every morning just to get to school, and the same distance back every afternoon. What would be elite training for any other child in the world was, here, simply going to class. Added to this is a very specific economic factor. In recent decades, winning an international marathon has become one of the few real paths to economic advancement for many families in the region, leading entire generations of young people to train with extreme discipline and motivation from childhood onward, with dozens of high-performance training camps concentrated within just a few square kilometers of the Rift Valley. Genetics, altitude, a childhood spent running out of necessity, and a real economic reason not to stop. No other town on the planet combines all 4 of these factors at once. But if you think beating the clock is extraordinary, the last town on this list wasn't born with its superpower. It's building it, workout after workout, in an effort to become something akin to a superhuman. Number 1. Hawaiian Watermen. They train with huge rocks underwater to survive the ocean. In Hawaii, there's a technique that has been passed down for generations among the so-called watermen, the families of the sea. In feudal Japan, there was a royal discipline called suijutsu, the art of combat swimming, in which samurai warriors learned to fight underwater while wearing armor and wielding a sword, staying afloat and maneuvering with a weight that would sink any untrained swimmer. It is believed, though not confirmed with the same certainty as the rest of this video, that some of these schools used stones to train breath control and endurance underwater, carrying them in much the same way as Hawaiian watermen do today. The modern technique is as simple as it is brutal. You pick up a stone weighing between 10 and 25 kilograms, between 22 and 55 pounds, walk with it along the seabed, and hold out down there for as long as possible. No oxygen, no help. Just the weight of the stone and the will not to surface. Today, those who practice this technique do not do so for war. It is practiced by the best watermen on the planet, giant wave surfers like Kai Lenny or Laird Hamilton, because when a 15-meter wave, almost 50 feet, traps you underwater, the only thing that keeps you alive is having trained your body to withstand panic in exactly this way. There is no gene, no mutation, no genetic inheritance behind this. Unlike all the peoples you've encountered in this video, there's no evolution here. There's pure human will, determined to forge, through repetition and suffering, what nature took generations to bestow upon others. And the exercise has begun to cross borders. Some strength coaches, drawn to the immense resistance generated by lifting weight under water pressure, have started adapting it on dry land, convinced that it holds one of the most comprehensive ways to build real strength. Even within the world of strongman, the discipline that crowns the strongest men on the planet by having them lift giant stones, known as Atlas stones, in competition, some athletes have begun experimenting with aquatic versions of their own workouts, seeking that same mental control under extreme pressure that Hawaiian Watermen have been pursuing for centuries. Now that you know the 13 most extraordinary realities that evolution and human will have been able to create, there is something that unites them all, even this last one, which was born not from a gene but from training. None of them chose to be extraordinary just for the sake of it. Each is the human body's response to an environment that should have killed it, and which instead made it stronger. The Sherpas who breathe without air, the Dinka who grew to be giants to withstand the heat, the Pygmies who stopped growing to survive the jungle, the Yakuts transformed into human boilers to combat the ice, the Bajau who live underwater as if they were fish, the Pingelapese who see in total darkness, the Haenyeo who dive without oxygen until they're 90, the Kalenjin who dominate the world marathon scene without even trying, and the Hawaiian Watermen who, without any special genes, are trying to build a superpower for themselves with their own hands. Few people know that this silent training, born in the sea, could be forging some of the most resilient bodies on the planet right now. Which of these 13 realities has left you most speechless? Leave your answer in the comments. And if this video has made you see the human body in a completely different light, hit like and subscribe to Uncensored World, because here you'll discover the world like nowhere else. It doesn't end here. If these tribes have left you speechless, the next video will do the same. Because in Africa, there are societies where young men must leap over wild bulls to become men, warriors who face lions with nothing to protect them, and entire villages that live alongside the planet's deadliest predators as if they were part of the family. Don't miss the video that follows this one to learn about Africa's most extreme tribes.